every day I've been hearing about complaints, Bill. Everybody's saying, oh my God, my house is still on the market. My house is still on the market. I'm hearing it every freaking day. I was talking to a couple today. They said our house has been up for sale for the last 3 to 4 months. Okay?
Okay.
And so it's not just them, people are complaining. They think that, a lot of people think that they can put their house on the market and within a couple of weeks they should have a buyer. And everybody's saying, oh, I'm being blindsided by what's going on in the housing market. So what I want to talk about is, I want to talk about these people that are always just saying, hey, we're being blindsided by all these price drops. Like, I'm selling my house for $500,000. My next door neighbor, he's desperate, so he just sold his house. It's kind of the same house, and he just sold it for $425,000.
Okay.
So same number of bedrooms, pretty much the same house, same neighborhood.
Yep.
So he's like, my next door neighbor, you know, that I was friends with for years, just blindsided me, and now I'm having a hard time selling my house because my house won't appraise even if somebody wants to buy the house with what I want it for.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but let's get in. We'll dig into everything.
Okay, let's dig into it. Okay, so we're going to talk about many reasons why people feel like they're blindsided and they're having a really hard time selling their houses, and we're going to tell you some really important stuff on what you should do if you're really desperate to sell your house. I want to go over some really good ideas on how to sell the house quick. Okay, so you don't waste. I see so many people wasting time. Like, I'll give you an example. One of my properties, and it wasn't even you as a realtor, there's another realtor, he says, hey, I want to sell your property. So I said, okay, you know, he gave me a price. He says I could get this price for it. I knew when I was signing, I don't think he could get that price. But I haven't heard from him in months, you know, since we said that.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I don't care if I sell it or not.
Right.
But other people care if they sell it.
Yeah.
So, in the meantime, if you like this kind of content, consider subscribing. It's so important to us, and it's really motivational. So, Bill, let's start off, okay? Rising mortgage rates. Higher interest rates have reduced buyer affordability, shrinking the pool of potential buyers. What can you say about that one?
Well, that's true.
It's true, right?
and here's the thing that I would say about that. Hoping, wishing, praying that the magic 2025 post-election, the interest rates are going to come tumbling down and we're going to be back at 4% again is not going to happen.
Didn't we talk about that?
Even if they do get down to 4%, we're not going to have them come tumbling down from, 7-ish%, give or take, down to 4% in a few months or even a year. And we don't want that. That's going to cause a crisis again, unless you have some sort of another catastrophic national event that changes things.
Right,
but that's a whole other issue.
But everybody's saying, I don't want to turn this into political, but everybody's saying, hey, you know what? Trump's going to go in there and everything's going to overnight.
Well, it doesn't work like that.
And I told everybody, it doesn't matter who's president, okay? What's going to happen is going to happen, okay? It takes a long time. It's not flicking a switch.
Well, hang on. And these things take time to happen. And as home values continue to increase on the average, even if you have a little blip down for a minute, a blip up, down, overall home prices start to increase. You're just because you're waiting for that magic 4% that may never ever happen. I literally just saw a pre-approval letter, not a pre-auth, a pre-approval letter for somebody. Nothing. The pre-authorizations. No, the pre-authorizations, the pre-approval. If you're just going to go there and say, hey, this is my income. Backwards.
Okay.
Yeah. Pre-authorization is just a stated income. Pre-approval, they've run your credit, they've done your background check, and then
they'll give you a price to shop for.
Yeah, they give you a price to shop for and your interest rate at that time. You got to lock it in too. But yeah, I mean, it's anyway. We could go on with that. That's a whole video.
Well, let's talk about this one. Home prices dropping. Many sellers price their homes too high based on last year's peak, only to see values decline.
Very true statement. That is a very, very true statement. Just because, and this will lead into where I said that the appraisal, or we can wait. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, that's going to come up too.
Okay, so I'll hold off on that one. But I see a lot of people put their houses up for sale for too high of a price. So it's called an aspirational price, which is totally fine. But don't confuse an aspirational price and then somebody lowering their price for value declines.
Tell me if I'm right or if I'm wrong, okay? So basically, realtors are buying the listing, like
That happens.
agreeing to any price so they can just get the listing.
Yeah.
Then they're hoping that there will be this one person,
The unicorn that shows up.
the unicorn shows up, says, you know what, I like your house. I will pay you $600,000 for a $500,000 house.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, if we don't get that bite, then it's okay. Then we'll lower the price. That's why you see so many price declines on Realtor.com, Zillow. You just see price decline.
Because the home was priced too high to start with, and that's not the best approach. You generally will lose more money in the long run because the house has been sitting on the market and you lose your leverage. And then that kind of goes to one of the other things you're talking about is time on market.
Yeah, so like my property, what I did is I listed it and then I took it off the market, then I put it back on the market, and people see that it's been on the market, off the market.
Of course they do.
Right?
First thing I do is I look up the history.
The history. It's not like you like, okay, I'm resetting the clock.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are taking their house and they're like, you know what? I'm going to wait till the market changes and then I'm going to put it back on there. A lot of people are doing that. You see a lot of homes coming off the market lately.
Yeah, I mean, their contracts expire and some people will test the waters for 3 months with a realtor and then they think it's going to change and something different's going to happen. But those are two different topics.
All right, so let's talk about this one. Another reason why people are getting impacted and they can't find a buyer is buyers are being priced out. The combination of high home prices, mortgage rates means buyers can no longer qualify for the loan. Maybe you have an expensive house. The more expensive your house is, the smaller pool of people you have.
Of course.
So, so that's why I see some houses, a house went up on the market because I follow these things for $325,000. I'm like, that's a pretty good that's a pretty good price for the house. I was just looking for an investment. And it was off the market. It was under contract within that same day. Because I thought it was the unicorn house.
Well, I mean, if it's priced right in the neighborhood and you're either the ugly duckling or the gem, per se, and you're priced correctly for either of those scenarios, your property probably will come off market quickly.
Here's another reason why people are probably getting impacted, and they can't sell their houses. And I've been running into this a lot talking to people, okay? Their property taxes. So they live on the water.
Yeah.
And they're paying, say, this is happening in Hudson, okay? They're paying $3,200 a year in property taxes. Okay? Now they want to sell it. They paid like $110,000 for it years ago.
Right.
Okay? But now, they fixed it all up and they did everything, and now they were trying to get $700,000 for it.
Okay.
They have to realize, tell me if I'm correct, they have to realize that when they sell that house for $700,000, those people are going to be paying a lot of property taxes.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with it being on the water. That's across the board.
That is across the board, but what I'm saying, what it has to do is, I see these ads and they're like, oh, property tax is $3,200.
What do you mean ads?
Well, like on Zillow, it says property tax is $3,200.
Yeah, so that's the ad. So what they're doing is they're telling you what the current property taxes are. So even in the MLS, and if you're a real estate agent, prints out the MLS sheet, it'll say, because I have to put it in when we do a listing, what the previous year's property taxes were. And those are based on the starting of when you purchased the home and the value that the assessed value of the home when you purchased it. If that was 25 years ago, it only goes up a little bit at a time. So, but your home values have increased significantly versus the assessed or value. It's not the appraised value.
Right, but because their taxes are going to be $12,000 a year, it's closing the amount of people that can afford that house.
That's everywhere.
That's everywhere.
That's across the board. It doesn't matter what house you buy, what condo you buy, that is how the taxes work.
What about this, that people are having a hard time selling their houses and the price drops? Insurance crisis. Skyrocketing homeowners insurance premiums are deterring buyers, especially in hurricane-prone areas. Say somebody's trying to sell their house and their roof is good, but it's 20 years old.
Okay.
Okay, or just say they have a panel, that's Zinsco, Sylvania, Federal Pacific, something that insurance companies aren't crazy about. Then they're like, oh, nobody really wants to buy my house, or I have to put money into the house and fix these things. So my question to you is, one of the solutions, pre-sale inspection is extremely important, I think. I'm not just saying that because I'm a home inspector. I just think it's important. If you know the roof is going to get called out, and you know the electrical panel is going to get called out, or the water heater has rust, or something's going to get called out, do you think, not in every situation, but do you think it's better to wait till a home inspector picks that apart and then negotiate it, or fix it up front?
That really just depends on, you and your financial situation. I mean, personally, I think it's easier to get ahead of things. If you're going to have to do it, you're going to have to do it. Major items like a roof, I wouldn't necessarily say put a new roof on. And here's why I say this. What if somebody comes along and they're buying it with cash and they don't care? And they're like, listen, I'm buying this cash and, I'm not worried about insurance and I can get a rider or something along those lines and I'll just fix it when I move in. No big deal.
So, okay, here's one, and this is another couple that I literally just spoke to before driving here. New construction. They want to sell their house. They bought it 3 years ago. Brand new construction, actually near Wesley Chapel.
Yeah.
The house is like 4,400 square feet.
Okay.
Okay. And they paid a premium for it. But now the same builder is building a new development right down the street. Like, I mean, literally, you could probably walk there,
Okay.
And those prices, I'm talking about they're building hundreds of them,
Okay.
And they have a lot of incentives now. So they can't sell their house. They're like, nobody wants to come see this house. Everybody's going to the new builds.
Yeah. Of course they are.
So that's one of the things why I.
Well, why did they buy the house? Did they buy it because are they having to move just because, or they buy it as an investment?
No, they bought it because they really couldn't afford it. Okay, they really couldn't afford it, but they were desperate because it was during the unicorn years.
So, okay.
And they wanted the house.
So they owed
premium.
Because they had to go into the lottery at that point and do the bids and overbiddage.
Paid a premium.
Yeah, okay.
But now they want to downsize. They want to downsize, and they're like, literally, our house has been on the market for 6 weeks, and it's a brand new house.
Well, first off, 6 weeks is not that long.
But they haven't had one showing.
So it's probably overpriced.
Right, but the whole thing is they did 2 price reductions, but either way they're going to be below what they paid for it. They're in a tough spot.
That's a hard one.
But the thing is, people are getting blindsided because new construction, if you bought a new construction and you're selling new construction pretty much in the same development, you're going to get blindsided.
I don't know if that's necessarily a blindside, but it sounds like they're also selling a larger house for a smaller house. So because you said they're downsizing.
They're downsizing, but construction companies are blindsiding them because the construction companies can negotiate better than they could.
So it's the construction company's fault.
Yeah, because look, builders incentives.
Okay.
Builders are offering interest rates, buy downs.
Yeah.
Cost assistant, discounts for resellers.
Yeah, look, I just went into a build center Saturday. Yeah, it was Saturday. I went in Saturday afternoon, and they had just opened. We were gone, when I had my procedure, so I wasn't able to go to the grand opening. But I just went there, and they were offering. There's 0 closing costs.
Yeah.
0 closing costs and like 4.99% interest. So the APR was like 5.2 something or other.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic. I mean, it was just that weekend because it was, a grand.
But they probably had a line out the door.
And they sold a lot of houses because why wouldn't you? And I've always said it, if you're going to buy a new construction, you get your best deals on the, at the very beginning of the construction phase.
Hey, here's another thing. We said it on some other videos, and I always tell you guys that when we're wrong, I'm going to call it out. Bill might not agree with this one, but you said, well, builders will never slash prices. Not true. I just found out they were slashing prices everywhere.
I want to see it in writing.
Yeah,
I don't believe it one bit.
They're slashing prices, and I will show you.
Are they slashing prices? So they're slashing value. Wait, they're valuations, or are they adding additional?
No,
products?
they're cutting. They're saying, hey, you know what? This house. Put it this way. This house was $500,000. Okay, we were selling it for. You know, it was maybe somebody was buying in, they pulled out, whatever. But now we need to get rid of it. We're taking $50,000 off. Now it's $450,000.
So it was already purchased once.
No. I said maybe they had a buyer and the buyer backed
out. Right. So they purchased it because they don't build until they sign.
Yeah,
and then they give money.
Yeah, it's a brand new build.
So they haven't lost money because they got the money and then the person backed out. So their net loss is zero.
Well, I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
I know one that they built, and they had a hell of a deal on this thing, and over in Persimmon Park, and they had cut the price of that house by a lot because the builder never lost the money.
Yeah, you guys could actually see it. Just go to Zillow, look at new construction, and go or just Google price cuts brand new construction, and then you'll see all the builders with the price cuts over there. All right. Seller shocks, okay, overpriced based on, like we said, the 2021, 22. People think that their house is still worth that.
Oh, right. Yeah,
They're not.
Yeah. Yep, I gotcha.
Another thing is people got used to a few days on the market compared to now. What was that? Well, during the unicorn years, how long was the average house on the market?
3 days.
3 days. Now, how long is the average house on the market these days?
Depending on where you're at, you can range anywhere from 30 days to 63 days, depending on where you're at. Like locally here, but we bounce back and forth between 30 and 63, depending on the community.
Okay. Here's another thing that I just read.
And that's time to contract, not closing.
Oh, okay.
That's time to contract. So, which is normal. 45 days was the average before COVID.
Wow. So here's one that I just read an article about, so I had to write it down. Appraisals are killing deals more than ever these days.
I would believe that.
Appraisals are coming in lower than expected. Market is harder for buyers to get financing.
Yep.
Why would you believe that?
Because the houses are overpriced to begin with.
Okay, so they have that unicorn buyer and
well, yeah, they got a price. It was it's hard. It's a juggle. It really is. So you look at what's sold around the area and you try to get the best price. So, and sometimes, particularly when somebody purchases a house and then they renovate it, you're kind of like a trendsetter. You don't know how much it's really going to be, so you're just kind of making your best guess for closest sales, and then you kind of have to get a few appraisals to see what happens. The banks are going to be pretty strict on the appraised values of the properties around the area because they don't want to lose money. They don't want to. We don't want to. It's not a bad thing necessarily, unless it happens to you, but I mean, it's not a bad thing overall because we don't want to go back into a housing crisis because of, upside down mortgages and things like that.
Absolutely. So also, here's another thing that people are being blindsided on selling their homes. Buyers have more options now.
Of course they do. There's more inventory on the market. So, and this is something else that happens a lot. You take your car in, and we've talked about this before. You take your car in to trade it in. It's probably the cleanest your car's been in a long time because you want that dealership to give you the most money possible, and you're going to have to do the same thing to your house. The days of not cleaning up the property, throwing out some mulch, pressure washing the driveway, soft washing the house, just, decluttering those things. And remember, you are moving, so decluttering is always a positive because you're going to be packing anyway. Buyers have a lot more choice. So they are a lot more particular when they walk into a house because they know they have 5 or 6 or 10 other homes to go look at.
All right, so the other ones, I'm just going to run down a quick list, okay? More and more homes are expired listings. There's a lot more expired listings coming up, okay, obviously. But you're having less of a buyer pool because hurricane and climate fears is a true thing.
That is 100% a true thing.
Remote work reversal. People, wanted to work from home. Now they can't anymore. Migration to Florida has slowed down. I don't care what anybody says. I just looked at the stats. It's slowed down. People still moving to Florida every day, but it's not like it used to be.
During COVID.
During COVID, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting more normal.
Affordability crisis is hitting everything. So here's the deal, okay? If I was selling a house, the first thing I would do is do a pre-sale inspection. This is the tip I was telling you. And things that are obvious, roof, plumbing, electrical, I would correct it, okay? Now, I'm not a realtor, Bill is this, but let me ask you a question. What's the biggest thing? Say you want to sell your house, what's the biggest thing? isn't it price? Just you got to price it right.
Well, yeah, you have to price it right. Like I said, there's aspirational prices, there's market prices, and then there's below market price, depending on the strategy you want to go. But aspirational pricing, and you're $60,000 over because you have the retail mentality, which is completely normal, because that's what we see in the store every day, is the retail mentality that will slash, the price. But when it comes to real estate, if you see a giant price reduction all of a sudden, I'm not talking little ones, but just giant. I saw one the other day, it was like a $60,000 price reduction. And it wasn't a multi-million dollar house or $1 million house. You see that, you go, okay, well, what's wrong with the house? That's the first thing I go, like, wait a minute, this has been on the market for a long time and they just dropped the price by 60 grand. Either A, they were unrealistic in, the seller was unrealistic with his price, the realtor sold him on a price that didn't support, or there's something wrong with the house.
But do you think it's smart to overprice your house at the beginning just to see if you get that unicorn, that one buyer that was be interested?
It hadn't really worked out for a lot a lot.
It hasn't worked out, so that's not a big thing.
Just look at Zillow and Realtor.com and Homes and all those other things. That's not the it's not the best strategy to go forward with. Price your house correctly. Your goal is to move. Now, if you don't care if you move, that's a different story.
Right.
If you're like, whatever, who cares? That's totally fine, because there are those
yeah, like I'm looking for that unicorn buyer on one of my properties, but
exactly.
I don't care.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But if you really do want to move, then you're going to need to price your house right. Let's just throw this out there, because we mentioned in the beginning and we stopped. So you price your house, you do find that unicorn buyer. And because you mentioned in the story in the beginning that this guy blindsided the neighbor because he sold his house for a lower price.
Yeah, so now the comps got killed.
But what was the appraised value of the house? That would be my question. Just because let's say I sold my house to you for $200,000, that doesn't mean that that's going to change the comps for everybody necessarily, because the appraised value of the house, is higher. So let's say I gave you a 50% discount.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but he made it sound like because of his neighbor selling it at a discount.
That's the face value. But if I went to the county records, what's the appraisal?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
We didn't get into that detail. He just said at the end of the day, when he potential buyer or anybody, it's going to hurt him.
Well, because they're going to use it, but when you start looking at things, that's when you have to have a professional agent that's starting to dig a little bit.
Yeah,
you
should do. You should definitely get somebody that knows what to do.
Because if I saw a house that was $425 as an example, and everything else in the neighborhood was going for $550, I'd say, well, why is that? What's that outlier?
Maybe it's a pool.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's just say it's equal for equal, right? Well, if the house sold for $450 and it's equal, even the appraiser is going to look at it and go, well, that's weird, and they're going to look into it a little bit further to make sure it's truly a comp. Just because the house sells in your neighborhood doesn't necessarily make it a comp. It has to be comparable.
Well, just find a realtor that knows what they're doing. Anyways, that's today's video. Do me a favor, watch this video right here. I picked it out just for you guys. You'll like it very much, and don't forget to subscribe. It's really important. It helps us out. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thanks. See you on the next video.